Are we on now, Mackenzie?
Yep, we should be. Give me 1 minute. I'm confirming that it's working.
Okay.
Okay, we're ready to go. You guys take it away. I will be hiding in the background.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Well, good afternoon, everyone from Dunrovin Ranch. We are trying something entirely new today. This is my first time on Google Hangouts. And we have today a special guest, Michelle Colburn, who is speaking to us from Arizona. Aren't you still in Arizona, Michelle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Normally, Michelle lives in Anchorage, Alaska, my former hometown. I met Michelle last June when I had the great fortune to play a minimal role in a very special workshop that happened here in Lolo with a technology that is entirely new to me called zoopharmacognosy. That's a big word. Can you explain that word to us, Michelle?
Yes, it's. Thank you, first of all, for including me in this presentation this evening. Zoopharmacognosy is actually based on a Greek word, and it basically means animals' ability to select their own remedies.
Well, I have to say I started out in this realm being a little bit skeptical, and that's the scientist in me. I wanted to see, show me the data. And then I read an article in the New Yorker magazine, I'm a very big fan of the New Yorker, that talked about the language of chemistry. And it talked about it both for humans and for animals and for plants themselves. And it really kind of blew me away, not thinking of chemicals as a language in themselves, but indeed they are to the plant world and to the animal world. And I think that is at heart what zoopharmacognosy is about, is it not? The chemicals of plants.
Yes, it is. It's the interrelationship of all beings on the earth and how they have co-evolved through millennia.
And the basic premise of the study of zoopharmacognosy is to really reveal those chemicals, those plants that have medicinal properties, and then to use those for domesticated and zoo animals. Is that basically correct?
Right. It's giving animals the ability to select plants and other constituents that they would normally select in the wild to maintain their health. Domesticated and captive animals obviously don't have that opportunity, so this is providing them with the ages-old relationship that is part of their DNA, literally.
For those of you who saw the video that I put up of the little kestrel coming to our nest and clearly seeking out the bark that the osprey had put in our nest, which is primarily cottonwood bark, this really piqued my interest because of my new interest in zoopharmacognosy. And Michelle explained that cottonwood bark has some very specific properties that he might have been looking for. Can you elaborate on that for a moment, Michelle?
Yes. Various volatile chemicals or secondary components to the plant are in different parts of the plant, and some will have it in their fruit, some will have it in the leaves. Cottonwood, it just so happens, has the medicinal constituents in the bark. That's one of the things. There's other things of the plant that have medicinal properties, but it has been known for some time that birds will actually line their nests with antibacterial chemicals that are found in cottonwood, being one of the plants.
Well, with this short introduction, Michelle, I know that you have a PowerPoint presentation that you can walk us through kind of from beginning to end, and your involvement. Where did you start out in this world of zoopharmacognosy, and where has it taken you?
Well, it's very interesting. I actually start my presentation with talking about that. So if you'd like, we can switch over to that screen, and I'll get us started.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay. I've had is everyone seeing this okay?
Like it's presenting yet.
Mackenzie, are we good?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Nope. Looks like your screen share isn't working right now.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me go back. Hang on. Okay.
There we go.
All right. Thanks for your patience. Sorry, folks. Oh, let me go back. Yes, I started by. Are we good now? Everybody seeing?
It looks like you need to pick the different screen there. We got your, it just says zoopharma. If you open up the presentation and select it from the screen share, that should work just fine.
Okay, sorry about this, folks. All right, let me. Screen share. When technology comes, it's always something. All right. Like we said, this is something new that we haven't tried before, so.
Everybody's pretty patient with us at this point.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Let's see. Is that, you see a picture of me with my puppy?
Yeah, it's not going full screen, so why don't you go back to the Hangout real quick, and then just stop presenting, and then I think you're just selecting the wrong thing.
Okay. Okay. So it says I'm screen sharing.
Yeah, so the slideshow should be playing, so you should select the slideshow from the screen. So stop screen sharing, then select the slideshow.
Okay. Stop screen sharing.
Great, and now screen share again, but this time select the slideshow.
Okay. How's that?
I think you clicked on the same thing you did last time.
All right. Well,
Hit play and let's see what happens.
well, I hit play, and you should see a picture of me with my dog.
Yeah, that's not coming up. Why don't you select your desktop and let's see what happens this time if you select your desktop.
Okay. All
Sorry,
right.
folks.
Screen share. Desktop. There we go. So I'm screen sharing. And let's see if I can go. Okay, how about now?
You're set.
All right, sounds good. Okay, back to where it all started. I've had a number of dogs, as probably most of you, animals that you've lost and you felt completely helpless, that there was nothing you could do for them. And when I lost my favorite little buddy of all time, I had wanted to study this art and this science for a long time, and once he died, I got a very strong message that said, just go do it. So all my work is dedicated to him. Zoopharmacognosy, as Suzanne mentioned is the study of how animals self-medicate with medicinal compounds. The word is a long word, but we can break it down to the original Greek origins: zoo, Greek for animal; pharmako means remedy; and gnosi is knowing. Another correlation that helps people remember sometime is the end of that word you see cognosy, or reminds you maybe of cognition, a knowing. So it's ability to have an innate knowing about remedies. And Suzanne mentioned some of the instances, but there's been a lot of study of wild animals and how they self-medicate. A number of years ago, a woman named Cindy Engel wrote a book called Wild Health, where she compiled chapters of research that has been done over quite a number of years of animals self-medicating. For example, elephants. One elephant had been studied for 2 years, and at the end of that 2 years, she suddenly took off and traveled 28 miles to consume a specific tree, and then gave birth directly thereafter. It turns out African women culturally have used the same tree to bring on childbirth. Starlings, not only starlings, but raptors, as we know, as Suzanne mentioned, have lined their nests with strong antimicrobial plants because there's so much decaying meat, and they want to keep the presence of pathogens and bacteria out of the nest for the young. Bears have been known to dig up a plant called osha root. It's even called bear root because history with native cultures has shown that they knew that the bears actually dug this root up and ate it in every spring, and it's a very strong anthelmintic, which means antiparasitic. They'll eat it, and then they'll make kind of a slobbery goo out of it and rub it on their coat when coming out of hibernation as an antiparasitic. And of course, chimpanzees are probably the most studied creature for determining medicinal compounds that have ended up as medicines for us. One of the most fascinating things that chimpanzees do, there's a plant called Aspilia, which has little hooked barbs on it. And the researchers noted that they would take these leaves and fold them up like an accordion with the barbs on the inside and swallow the leaf whole. And they couldn't understand why they were doing this. Well, as it turns out, the chimpanzees would eat them whole so that the toxic components of the leaves would not be broken down in their digestive tract in the stomach acid. And these little barbs on these leaves, the way they folded it, as they went through the GI, they would actually hook onto the worms and the parasites and pull them right out. And when they examined their fecal matter, these hooks, the barbs on these leaves, would be loaded with parasites that they had pulled out. So it's just fascinating to know all of the different kinds of, and we'll be talking more about some more examples. So the word zoopharmacognosy was not, has been around for a while, but the woman who founded, applied zoopharmacognosy and actually started realizing that it's something that we could offer for our pets and captive animals, is Caroline Ingram. She's from England. It all started with her when she had a dog that had been bitten by a rattlesnake, took it to the vet. The anti-venom drip was ineffective. They basically said, you can take him home, he's going to die before the night's through. Well, he started bleeding from the nose, and Caroline thought, she knew that carrot seed essential oil was a very strong for cellular repair. She put some in capsules, and the bleeding stopped. So she continued throughout the night administering the carrot seed oil in capsules when the bleeding would start up again. And by the next day, he was up. I mean, he was still alive, And she continued offering the carrot seed and essential oil. She also gave him some lavender essential oil on the wound and some other things, and the dog survived. That was her start of actually realizing that this is something that she could do to help animals. Over the past 30 years, she's been learning about plant extracts, natural therapies, observational research, and compiling thousands of case studies of what animals typically select for certain conditions, compiling all this information, and finally teaching it in a school. She's also still involved in ongoing scientific research and doing case studies. She's been at the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust in Kenya to help save orphaned baby elephants. She's worked with various wild animals that are in sanctuary or at rescue centers in the UK. And one of them was a female Siberian tiger in England who showed such extreme rage and aggression towards males that she would throw herself against her enclosure and literally hurt herself. Her rage against men being anywhere near her was so intense, which of course meant the veterinarians couldn't treat her. They could do nothing. So they brought Caroline in. They admit that they were very skeptical at the time, but it was either euthanize her or try something. And a lot of times, zoopharmacognosy is tried as a last resort with a lot of skepticism. However, in this situation, the particular things that she offered, which are listed there, hemp oil, sandalwood, which is normally very strong affinity with big cats and little domesticated cats too. After 2 sessions, once she selected what it was that she really resonated with, and we'll talk about what selection means, then when the director of the zoo or the keeper went in, they put all of the things that she had selected all over him. And as he walked in, she growled. She didn't get up. She didn't lunge. She growled lightly, and they could not believe it. They had never seen anything like it. And they've continued to this day, and now she's one of their most successful animals that they have. So zoopharmacognosy, you see the word applied zoopharmacognosy, and what that means is zoopharmacognosy is animals' ability to medicate themselves or select their own remedies. Applied is us providing it for them. So whenever you see that word, you know that that's what that means. Since we do use essential oils, a lot of people think, oh, well, isn't it just aromatherapy for animals? Well, it is not. And the reason it is not is because we use, yes, some essential oils, but we also use absolutes, which are similar to essential oils, but distilled a little bit differently, or gathered from the plants a little bit differently. We use different plant extracts, hydrosols, macerated oils, herbs. You can see on that table there's all sorts of things, and you don't even see any essential oils in that table. But the key issue in zoopharmacognosy is allowing the animal to guide treatment. And we'll talk about that, and I'm going to show you some examples of how that works. But to start out with, you may be wondering, well, what does selection mean? You talk about selection like the animal says, okay, I want that. I mean, how do you, and I get this question all the time, how do you know what selection means? And I'm sure, Suzanne, when you first heard about zoopharmacognosy, you hear that term, and it probably sounds a little kind of woo-woo.
It certainly did to me.
Yes, well, I'm going to show you a very short video of what is not in anyone's mind a question of what selection is. This is an Amur. Used to be called Siberian tigers. They're Amur tigers now. They are endangered in the wild. This is Carole from the Alaska Zoo, and I had an opportunity to just offer him a single oil, and I actually offered him 2 oils. I offered him German chamomile, which he didn't really have too much interest in, but then I offered him sandalwood essential oil, and here you get to see, this is what selection means. Whoops, excuse me. That's pretty nice. Sandalwood is a more emotional, calming oil.
I can tell.
Mm-hmm. We like that, don't we? See, I knew this would be good for you. So if you wonder what selection is, that's it. And zoopharmacognosy is something that you can use with all animals. Obviously, we just worked with the tiger there. And I might mention that when I showed the curator of the zoo that short video clip, they said, "What did you do? He never does that." So I've worked with horses, and this, interestingly, was a horse that I was applying green clay and neem powder to, which is one of the powders that we use to protect horses and other animals from flies or parasites. And I actually was working on this side of his head. You could see he's got green on his forehead, and he actually turned his head towards me and said, "Put it over here." That's why I'm kind of leaning back there. It's with cats, and people say don't use essential oils with cats, and you really do need to use a lot of caution with cats because they don't have the chemical substance in their body to break down the volatile chemicals that are in essential oils. So it does need to be used really with all animals with quite a bit of knowledge and training. But we also use herbs, and with cats we always start out with a little herb garden, because in the wild, cats like to be around their plants. Of course, he's laying on catnip. With dogs and with physical ailments, this dog got into a little patch of devil's club and had quite a nasty nose problem there that was quite painful, which we resolved quickly within a day or two based on his selections. And then, of course, polar bears. We are very fortunate to have, I'm very fortunate to have access to a male and a female polar bear at the Alaska Zoo, and they all make their selections the same way. Some more examples, just so you can see that this isn't, it is for emotional and psychological, but it's for physical as well. This was a dog that had sores all over its body, and they spent 2 years going to a number of different vets trying to figure out what can we do, how can we resolve this. We just can't figure it out. Within 2 days of consuming spirulina, coconut oil, and this dog consumed almost 2 cups of coconut oil, garlic essential oil that was put into rice bran oil. The sores stopped being red, they started scabbing over and healing, and to this day the dog has never had any more issues, no more sores in its body. For a horse that had cut the back of his foot, we applied green clay, caked it on there. Green clay will protect, it attracts gram-negative bacteria and pathogens and stops it in its track. It prevents any sort of insect or mites or anything, and completely heals wounds, and that healed up beautifully. Now, a lot of people, this is one thing that people always say, oh, when I start presenting these things, they say, my dog will eat anything. He'll eat everything. And it takes me less than 5 minutes to disprove that. Because animals really do recognize the difference between things that they take for nutrition, which is primary compounds, food for cell building, for cellular processes, providing energy, etc., which includes carbs, enzymes, amino acids, etc., and secondary compounds, which are found in many plants. Secondary compounds in plants actually protect there's a number of different things that they do for plants. They protect the animals, or they protect the plants from bugs or microbial invasion. They assist in photo repair. They really play a very valuable role in the function and survival of the plant. And those are the things that are the volatile oils that we use in the form primarily of essential oils, hydrosols, and the like. Example, plants that contain valuable oil or contain volatile oils will bleed those oils into wounds on the plant to form like a protective antiseptic resin. For example, Taxol, which is a diterpene from a plant called the Pacific yew, is actually active against both solid and leukemia-like cancers. All plants, some common ones that you experience every day, apples contain 150 known phytochemicals, and 67 of them provide a wide range of medicinal actions. Dandelions, that weed that we love to hate, contain 64 bioactive compounds. I know it's hard to imagine, but all plants are medicinal to some degree for some condition. There are many plants, yes, that are poisonous, but you could probably find an animal or something in nature as to why that plant exists. So how does it happen? Well, it's very interesting how it happens, and one of the biggest process in the body through which it happens is olfaction. And olfaction is science has been really slow to understand the process of olfaction, especially as it relates to chemical processes in the body. And of course, in animals, their sense of smell is very, very key to their survival, not only to their survival for finding food, but for protection from predators, to finding a mate. Olfaction is involved in all of that. 2% of human genes are devoted to sensing aromas, and that number is only second to the number of receptors of our immune system, and that's human. So imagine that animals' sense of smell is so much powerful than ours, how important that is to them. When you smell something, imagine right now smelling a rose. You can kind of smell. You kind of can conjure something in your mind or your senses what a rose smells like. Smelling takes 2 to 3 synapses to get to the brain centers and into the bloodstream. What does that mean? Well, a synapse going from one cell to the other is not even anything you can measure. It's like trying to see a single cell. But compare that with other processes, your sensory processes, like if you turn and look at something, you recognize that it seems almost instantaneous, but it really takes 4 to 5 synapses for you to actually see it, which again is, not even what we call the blink of an eye. But smell, it takes half that long. So it's a very, very powerful sense that we're just now starting to really learn about. Animals have an organ called the vomeronasal organ, or the VNO, and it transports complex aromatic chemicals to the brain through the limbic system. And it awakens animals' innate responses. And when when a smell is detected via the olfactory tract, olfactory information travels to the olfactory cortex without first passing through the thalamus. So this bypass is very unique to olfaction. And it's a fascinating subject that they're really just now starting to understand the role it plays in our relationship. But they've also determined that smell, because of the different parts of the brain that are involved in processing olfactory or sensory, smells, that there are interlacing fibers and nerve cells which are able to link emotion, memory, and smell all together. And this is actually how mind and body healing takes place. There's new research actually showing the benefit of olfactory or essential oil or different kinds of smells on emotional healing. And it's a fascinating, very fascinating area of research. There are also receptors that are activated when for taste. So we know that animals sense things not only by smell but also by taste. So when you think about the sense of smell, Suzanne, if you think of an orange, do you feel like that's a pretty intense smell that you can sense?
Yes, I do. I think it's very aromatic.
Mm-hmm. So if I say think of how an orange smells or think of how a rose smells, it seems like that really smells a lot. So yeah, we have a lot of olfactory receptors. We have about 6 million olfactory receptors. Well, that seems like a lot till you look at your little buddy, your lab, and yeah, there's a reason that they're hunting dogs, 280 million. Well, what do they use in England for fox hunts? Or used to. They used to use beagles. They have even more. Well, that really seemed like a lot to me until I did a little bit more research and thought, wow, what is an animal that's pretty much at the top of the food chain in their environment and really needs a very acute sense of smell? Well, that would be Lou and Apoon, the polar bears at our Alaska Zoo. Polar bears have over 1 billion olfactory receptors. They can smell seals through the ice, through very thick ice, and they can smell things from very, very far away. And there are other animals that are even more, that have this very acute sense of smell as well. Well, so what are they seeking? Did they just say, oh, that flower smells good, I think I'll eat it, or oh, those leaves look really green? Well, what they are seeking are the chemical constituents, and these are what they're sensing. So various plants have various different chemical constituents. One of the things that I found very interesting in learning about this work was, okay, we know that animals are making these selections. What are they selecting? I mean, I don't get it. I want to know the nuts and bolts. Well, so I studied organic chemistry of essential oils. I just completed that course and learned so much that all these specific chemical constituents have specific properties. For example, chamomile and carrot seed that we talked about in Caroline working with her dog heals wounds and causes tissue regeneration. Thyme, garlic, oregano, and actually cinnamon as well are very, very anti-infectious, and you've probably been reading about, there's a number of different studies now that looking at a number of different essential oils to use for anti-infectious agents with everything from cattle to chickens in hospitals against MRSA. It's funny how things kind of come back around. Sedating, valerian and vetiver, and pain relieving. So each of these plants have specific jobs, really. They have chemical constituents that provide these specific ability to heal animals from whatever it is they're experiencing. There are some that are flavors, attractor compounds, aromatics in fruits and vegetables. We know how the pollinators are attracted to orange flowers, etc. They deter pests. They protect plants from UVA. I'll give you another really fascinating example of that. The process by which this happens is basically the body detects an injury or disease state or some kind of lack of a regulated system, and it releases a chemical signal to increase the sensitivity both by taste and smell of these various secondary metabolites, and causes them to be attracted to them and to be able to sense them more in their environment. And then they continue to eat whatever it is until either the taste changes or their sensitivity to these compounds decreases. And the fascinating thing is that what we're really beginning to understand is that all of these components of the earth are so interrelated. We think that everything's just random and that there's no link to all of these things. But as you'll see in this example I'm going to talk about next, things really are related, and you cannot separate any part of an ecosystem really from any other. There's an example, this is a fascinating example to me, and when I originally learned about this, I learned about the relationship between the wasp and the caterpillar. This study has been ongoing at the University of Connecticut for a number of years, and they know, of course, that yes, now even we know that insects will self-medicate. So the wasp will lay its larvae inside the caterpillar. The immune system will recognize this attack, and it causes increased sensitivity of an alkaloid taste receptor. Normally, caterpillars don't eat alkaloids. It's poisonous to them. But they recognize that if they eat, of course, they don't think about this. It's all on a very innate level. They increase their consumption of alkaloids to kill the parasites, the larvae, and once the parasites are killed, the immune system stimulation decreases and the sensitivity of the taste receptor goes away, and they go back to eating their normal diet. Well, the really fascinating part of this story I learned studying botany. So what I found out was that's not only what's going on. So at the same time all of this is going on with the caterpillar and the wasp, plants are detecting a component in caterpillar saliva that begins, it's called voicetin, and once the plant recognizes this chemical component, it begins emitting a blend of volatile aromatics which actually attracts the parasitic wasp. So if feeding goes on for longer than 2 hours, the whole plant will emit this compound, not just the part that is being parasitized. The amount of volatiles that this plant will let off varies during the time of day. Generally, it's the highest when the wasps are foraging. And this chemical signal is designed as protection to the plant to reduce caterpillar populations in succeeding generations. So if the caterpillars stop feeding, the chemical signal of the plant stops as well. So you can see the relationship of everything. It's not these two things interacting, it's the plants interacting with each animal. So this, you can maybe see by now, if you're kind of thinking, wow, well, what could we do with this? How can we apply this? Where would this be effective for having great results where maybe other things have not worked? And there's all sorts of applications for this. And animals that have been traumatized, or rehabilitation efforts around the world with endangered species, with animals in either zoos or that are in captive situations and dealing with the trauma and the stress of that. Of course, the rescue and rehabilitation of pets is very obvious. And not only physical disorders, but emotional disorders, psychological disorders. The dog in this picture, actually, I just worked with recently. He's actually he's a lead sled dog in Alaska, and he was very wild. He would not let you get near him. He wouldn't even let his owner get close to him. He was very, very flight or fight all the time. Any slight sound and he would jump. He would react. She had never seen him lay down in the house. So she had me come over, worked with him. It took 2 hours of letting him select whatever it was he needed, and he finally laid down. He didn't go to sleep. He just laid down. And the next time, and we thought that that was pretty good progress. So the next time I went over and worked with him, within an hour, he was sound asleep on his dog bed, and with me laying next to him. He didn't know me from Adam. I was a total stranger. He went right to sleep. And then within 2 days, she sent me this picture, and she said, "Look who's on my lap. He's never, ever done this before." He's sitting on her lap in the car. Normally, she can't get near him. So it's fascinating. There's all sorts of applications, and we're always learning more. We're always finding new ways to use this to the benefit of animals. The key is always to continue treatments until no more selections are made by the animal and the condition, symptoms, behavior, whatever, starts to disappear. And a lot of people ask, well, do you have to keep doing it? And it's a really good question, but generally we find that once the behavior changes or the condition goes away, like the example I showed you of the foot with the sores, it really doesn't come back. Sometimes you need a little tune-up, but generally it does not come back. Any comments or questions at this point that anyone would like to ask? Feel free.
Mackenzie, are you keeping track of the chat? I don't have access to it. Or is anybody asking a question on chat?
Yep, I'm watching chat. They're a little bit behind us, so you got to give them a minute to finish the presentation, and I'll let you know if there's any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'll go ahead and feel free to let me know if anyone has a question or a comment, Mackenzie. So this is the first animal that I worked with in a zoo setting, and this is Elf. He was abandoned by his mother in the Fairbanks area. Somebody found him out in their barn, and when he was very, very young, and they waited and waited and waited. The mother never came back. They had to feed him and get him into a safe environment, and he came to live at the zoo. And he has had a respiratory infection that where he just blows out of his nose these copious amounts of yellow and green and nasty goo, and has been in not very good health. They cannot contain him to give him any kind of shot, draw blood. They could, sedate him and do all of that, but it would actually be really hard on him, and the veterinarian at the zoo tries to minimize those kind of situations for animals, especially when they're in distress. So I was called in. What do you think? Can you help him? So I initially started with offering him what he would normally forage for in the wild, because we know that he eats things for a reason and that he will select what he needs. And of all of these 6 different things that I offered him, of course he selected birch, a little bit of spruce. He selected willow, and willow, as I mentioned earlier, has salicylic acid or methyl salicylate, which actually is processed in the body as an anti-inflammatory. So once he ate all that he wanted there, we offered him various different essential oils. I had the staff offer them to him first because he knew them and I thought he would be more comfortable. These two particular oils that Kristen is holding, the one that he's got his nose near is German chamomile and the other one is garlic. He was very interested in both of those. He wanted to lick it. He was really trying to get the bottle in his mouth. And so whatever the animal wants to do, if they want to ingest it, if they want it applied externally, if they just want to inhale it, these are all methods of being able to work with whatever components they have selected. So it wasn't working to go through the fence, so I was in an area more accessible, so I put it on my hands. And he was very interested. You see the position of his head, his eyes, his ears. This is a very typical processing response with all species. They will kind of like go into a trance. They'll get what I call sleepy eyes. And they just kind of like go off for a minute when they're processing. He continued, and I was just holding my hand still, and he started rubbing his head all over, wanting it applied externally. He continued. As he rubbed it off, I just put more on, and I held my hands out, and he just continued wanting it applied, and I just put it wherever he presented his head. You can see his water bucket there. He's standing near that. He continued rubbing his head all over the German chamomile. He did actually see his head is dropped, his ears are back. He's in a very passive mode. His eyes are just about closed. And if he could have come through that fence, he would have been wrapped right around me wanting that. You can see now, look where he's standing. He's stepped inside his water bucket. And he wants this applied to him all over. He just wants to be as close as he can. You can see even on the railing there where it looks like it's wet, that's how much mucus. You can actually, if you look at his nostril, you can see that he's got mucus on his nostril. Sorry about that. So we continued offering, and you see he's getting closer and closer. He's standing in his water, and he wants it applied. He ingested it. I just kept going as long as he wanted it, and just kept going. He started to seem like he was done, but I put some on my hands to see, are you done? And he actually still wanted more. He knew what he needed to heal. And heal he did. We offered German chamomile a couple of more times until he was no longer interested. Then he went and stepped about 5 steps to the left and laid down. And he was done. So it's a fascinating, it was the first time that I had actually worked with a wild animal, and the way that he selected his oils, and he has done so again since. Actually, right this winter he's still got another, it's not as bad as it was last year, but he's got some more drainage, and I've been offering him lots and lots of willow, and the staff at the zoo is actually right now giving him German chamomile in my absence. So I'm very anxious to see him when I get back. So the things that we learn, it seems like, you know, to people seeing it for the first time, some of the cues are obvious that the animals give, but the kinds of things that we're learning and able to do this work includes obviously recognizing and interpreting different behaviors that animals will use when we call selecting, or I say oftentimes that they have an affinity for a certain plant, a certain herb, extract, essential oil, whatever. Identify extracts that animals with particular issues are likely to select. For example, they will, we know that animals that have are dealing with parasitic infestations will very oftentimes select either garlic or clove as my alpacas. I put it in their water and they drink the whole bucket down. And I used to have trouble with mites. Ever since I started doing that, I have no trouble at all. We talk about the theories and how they can apply to the work that we're doing. You know, a theory is a theory. It's not set in stone, and it's something that is always morphing as we learn more and more about a subject. But the theory that we currently adhere to is the one that says that the taste changes and they increase the sensitivity to medicinal compounds. And that was actually Caroline's son who developed that theory with his doctoral thesis in this area. You can't just study this. You have to study botany. You have to know about plants. You have to study herbalism and the benefits of various different plants and how they heal. You have to know biology. You have to understand a little bit of organic chemistry to know how these things work in the body and how chemical and biological processes take place. A lot of times, no matter how much you know of the biological mechanisms, the most important thing that you have to do is let go of control. Because if you're really into control, you can't let the animal be the one who determines what it is he needs. So you have to really not be too wound up in what it is that you think you know, because it seems like every time you do that, the animal kind of comes back and says, no, that's not what I need. Every other animal you've dealt with may need this, but I need this. So there's a bit of flexibility. The information and the knowledge helps, but being able to really trust that animal and trust that animals really have an innate ability to select their own remedies is absolutely key. Interestingly enough, doctors and veterinarians and people in the medical field, as it pertains to animals, really don't know this. I've actually been presenting information to my vet, who's also the vet at the zoo. He's fascinated by it and is very interested in having us continue the work. So we're probably the only zoo in the country, for sure in the United States, and possibly one of maybe one or two in the world that are using zoopharmacognosy with a captive zoo population. We are starting to see that herbal medicine and zoopharmacognosy is part of the degree program. This is at University of Greenwich in England, so it's very exciting to see this information being shared with the medical profession. So it's really taken me to places I never thought that I would be. It's taught me things that I never thought I'd learn. It's made me appreciate animals in a way that I never knew I could, and have a relationship with animals in ways that I could never have imagined. So I'm very excited to be able to offer this information to you, and I'm very much looking forward to the discussions and the questions and the comments that you will have as a result of this. And it's an exciting field to be a part of, and I'm so honored to be able to share it with you.
Thanks, Michelle. We do have a couple questions. Are you ready for questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, give me 1 second. So I Love Grandkids was wondering if there's a place where you can go to find out who's offering zoopharmacognosy in their areas. Like, is there a website or something that lists people who offer this sort of treatment?
Yes. For those that are interested, we can provide information about that on the Days at Dunrovin site that Suzanne will coordinate. But Caroline has written a book called How Animals Heal Themselves. The picture of it is there. And if you can either Google Caroline Ingram or Ingram Applied Zoopharmacognosy, or if you just if you put the word zoopharmacognosy in, her name is probably the first one that's going to pop up. But they are working on putting together a list of people who are certified and approved to practice zoopharmacognosy in your area. I will tell you that there's only one other person in the United States that has actually graduated from the IAZ. There are other people that you will see, giving essential oils to animals, or claiming that they know about this work, but there's really not many people in the United States that are graduates of the program. They may have taken a course or two, so it's very limited at this time. If you go to Caroline's website, you can get some more information.
What's the URL again for Caroline's website?
I believe it is, I don't have it with me. I think it's carolineingram.co.uk, something like that. It's in England, so it's got a different tag on the end. And we can provide that information for you.
It looks like it's just Ingram, INGRAHAM.co.uk, and I'll put that on chat here in just a second. Let's see, one more question, which you kind of already went into, but is this something that people can practice? I'm going to modify it a little bit. Sorry, Mr. T for Cats. Mr. T for Cats, I always call you Mert. I don't know why, but MRT. Anyways, the question was, how do people apply this themselves, or is that something that you'd recommend, or would you recommend only doing it in consultation with someone like yourself?
You mean, do they do it to their animals themselves, or do they do it to people?
I think they're talking about animals, like how can they apply it to their own pets, or for example.
Okay, so there's a number of things that are really important in doing this work. Number one is making sure that you have the absolutely highest quality botanicals available in the world. I do not use any essential oils that I do not buy directly from a distiller. I don't use any oils from any multi-level marketing companies. I do not use any herbs that are not organic or oils that are not organic. And if I don't know the source and exactly what the chemical constituents of each essential oil are, I don't use it. Especially I just can't stress how important it is to use the highest quality of products with animals. If someone is interested in, say they go out and buy Caroline's book, it would have to be shipped from England, by the way, or learn a little bit about a particular condition and what animals tend to select for that condition. It's really important to offer animals a choice. Some animals you can offer them one at a time. Dogs, for example, it's much easier to tell, like if I were to offer my dog 3 different oils for anxiety, generally they're going to really key in on one. If you offer them more than one, that gives them the ability to choose which one is best suited to their particular situation. If you just offer one and they don't like it or it's not what they need, you've kind of lost. Some things that people can do for their animals, that I can tell you that are very helpful for, I assume people are talking about their own cats or dogs. Most dogs and animals that are fed on kibble tend to be very lacking in essential fatty acids, which it's impossible to have them provide them in a dried kibble that's been extruded and heated to high temperatures. So one thing that you could offer is some essential fatty acids in the form of perhaps coconut oil. We use coconut oil, rice bran oil, hemp oil, and give your animals a choice of which oil that they might need. I've got one dog that likes coconut oil, one takes a little but likes hemp oil much better. Whenever I feed my dogs, I offer them both spirulina, which is a super green food, very high. It's the most perfect, it's the most complete protein on the planet. Another thing that is very beneficial for dogs is barley grass. So I'll offer them the tube of barley grass or the jar of barley grass and the jar of spirulina, and which one they go to and start licking out of, that's the one I put a little bit in some water or in a bowl. There are really getting to be a number of websites on holistic care for animals now that have good information about some of these kinds of things that you can offer for your animals.
There was another question about just general things that you would use for calming.
Yes, calming is really a big one, especially dogs or cats. Or I would not recommend anyone use essential oils, especially with cats, without being trained on how to do it. First of all, if you're offering herbs, people, you can offer your cat some catnip. Some cats find it to be sedating. Some cats find it to be, like caffeine. So you never know what end of your cat is going to be on. For sedating, generally, for fireworks or trips to the vet or whatever, something you can buy in the store, hemp oil. Hemp is, from the same mold as, or from the same plant family as marijuana. There's no TCH or THC, whatever it is, I can't remember, in hemp oil, but it is calming to the system. Valerian and vetiver are both calming oils and plants. You actually see a lot of pet products that have either valerian or vetiver in them. If you're worried about, if you're wanting to help your animal through a traumatic event like fireworks, July 4th, New Year's, I would start a few days in advance and get them used to it. And a lot of these, sometimes you have to take it for a couple of days for the effects to really take hold. So and there are a lot of products now on the market that have valerian in them for pets. So that's probably the best one.
Great. Well, I think that's about it for questions. I'm just waiting to see if there's any last questions. Several people said thank you so much for the nice reply. Oh, there's one last question from Gabby, who's wondering if you suggest any dog food preferences.
Well, we could do a whole nother one of these on dog food, and so and there's different theories out there about what's best for dogs: feeding raw, feeding kibble, feeding homemade. The only reference that I would have is Dr. Karen Becker. Her website is mercolahealthypets.com. She is a vet that I have worked with quite a bit in a number of instances with my dogs, and she has really good videos and recommendations about what you can feed your dog to keep it, that is the most healthy for it. So I would look online. There's a lot of discussion. It seems more so right now about raw versus dried food versus homemade versus whatever. But the only recommendation I could really give, other than looking up some of the information online, is if you're going to feed it dry food or prepared food, buy the best food you can afford. And if it's dried kibble, it's probably still not as good, but it's better than feeding something that you buy cheap at a bag and in a bag in Walmart. But you do what you can. But there are a lot of resources online for that discussion.
Yeah, I've always fed raw myself, or at least for the past several years. I find it can help with a lot of different things. Well, thank you so much. Everyone really enjoyed it. We'll be posting the video tomorrow from this evening for everyone to refer back to if they want or share with their friends. Any last words from you, Suzanne, or you, Michelle?
Well, yes, I have a few last words. I'd like to invite everybody to come back at the same time next week. Michelle has graciously offered to work with us to look at how we might improve our horses' lives by offering them some plants that they will not normally find in their diet, which we try to pay very close attention to our horse health. And this is something that we talked about a little bit in the workshop that was held here last summer, that some horse owners are providing their horses with a selection to see if they decide what they need on any particular time. And so I'd really like to implement something like that on a routine basis here to really ensure that our horses have the best access to the best medicinal opportunities that they can. And so Michelle will be talking with us and working with us over the next month to do some of that. And I can't tell you how excited we are, Michelle, to get started on this. And so next week at this time, Michelle and Jamie and I will discuss exactly how to go about doing this.
Yes, this is going to be very exciting. And the part of it that I'm so excited about it, Suzanne, is that your viewers are going to play an active role in this whole process. They will be sharing information with us about what they've seen. We'll give you lots of information about what to look for and how to watch, and you'll all have the opportunity to share your observations with us, and it'll be very key actually in helping us determine how this process goes.
Yes. It'll be a time of discovery for all of us. It's really going to be fun. We're looking forward to it. So come back on Tuesday next week, 5 o'clock, same time. Michelle will be back with us, and we're going to get started. And thank you very much, Michelle. I'm just so delighted that we've made this connection. When we had this workshop, I had no idea that a woman from Alaska would be coming down. And, of course, Michelle and I hit it off right away for a variety of reasons.
We did.
I had the great fortune of visiting Michelle in October when I went back to Alaska, and I look forward to a long association with you, Michelle.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be participating and be a part of what's going on at Dunroven.
Well, thank you. And we'll see you all next Tuesday. Have a good evening, and be safe and happy and healthy.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. And everyone says thanks to you guys as well. Bye.